Welcome back for the panel presentation. Now I'd like to call upon the chairs, rather I'd say the panel presenters, Dr. Nevenka Hrubatin, Mr. David Pelcic, Mr. Jan van Schoonhoven, and Mr. Martin Subek. So please come on to the dais. Nevenka Hrubatin is a professor of economics at the Faculty of Economics, University of Ljubljana. Since 2001, she has been acting as Vice Dean for International Relations. She teaches several economic courses like microeconomics, economics of public utilities, government regulation, and markets. She has also delivered an MBA program for the Indian Oil Corporation in India. Her research interests are oriented toward public utilities, their liberalization, regulation, privatization, and pricing policies. She has also been working as a consultant for the Slovenian government, the Slovenian electricity and gas regulator, the energy agency, and several utilities. She is the co-editor of the Economic and Business Review for Central and Southeastern Europe and a member of the editorial board of the Journal Parva. In the past, she was president of the supervisory board of the Slovenian Securities and Exchange Commission and president of the Agency of the Republic of Slovenia for revision of ownership transformation of companies. Welcome you, madam. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Martin Subek. Mr. Martin Subek is a senior investment officer at the International Finance Corporation, IFC, member of the World Bank Group. His part of the IFC's PPP Transaction Advisory Department, specializing in advising governments in emerging countries on structuring and implementation of PPP projects, with particular focus on infrastructure. Prior to joining the IFC, he worked in investment banking and private equity. He also has experience in advising strategic and financial investors, structuring and execution of mergers, acquisitions, disposals, and PPPs. We welcome you, sir. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. David Pelcic. He's a promoter, director of Fairwood Smart Green India, CEO of Fairwood Smart Green Global, and also the president of the board of Robotina. He has a master's degree in economics from Clemson University, United States, and a bachelor's degree in electronics engineering. He was awarded the Award for Exceptional Entrepreneur Achievement in the year 2011 in Slovenia. He is also a member of the presidency of the Chamber of Commerce of Slovenia and board member of the Engineering Chamber of Slovenia. He has initiated and actively manages development of smart green technology, which is base of all the smart control solutions and product. We welcome you, sir. Can I just request Professor Nevenka to give a talk on impact of economic and financial crisis on public-private partnerships.
I'm very pleased to be here with you at this conference. I hope the conference will be very fruitful and that will give some ideas how to improve public-private partnerships in the future. I'm going to talk about the impact of the financial and economic crisis on public-private partnerships. And basically, I will talk a little bit about the problems that appeared even before the financial crisis, and I will also then try to see what are suggested solutions and what kind of solutions countries are adopting to solve these problems. I will mostly draw on the experiences of the developed countries, not so much on countries like India and more developing, and more developing countries. I would also like to share the definition of the private-public partnerships in Europe. And there is really no definition in the European Union law at the community level. And in general, we have two types of public-private partnerships. They could be a contractual public-private partnerships, a kind of concessions that are paid out of charges. And they can be either work concessions or service concessions. And there are also private finance initiatives. So this term was introduced in the UK. For PPPs that are really paid out of the governmental budget for services that are for schools, for example, hospitals, roads, and so on. And then we have also in Europe, we use the term public-private partnerships also for a kind of mixed enterprises. We call it institutional public-private partnerships, but in fact they are really a kind of mixed enterprises because this is a new entity that could be created by public and private participation. We are all aware about the advantages that public-private partnerships should deliver, so the advantages over traditional finances through public procurement processes out of governmental budget. And especially in Europe, off-balance sheet financing is a very important reason. So it means that the government doesn't have to borrow money. PPPs are privately financed, and so debt levels of the government and these debts are not recorded in the governmental sheets, which helps comply with the Stability and Growth Pact. Better value for money is also a very important thing, and some countries have introduced value for money test, where PPPs could be taken only if they are cheaper than traditional public sector procurement processes. Transfer of risk and risk sharing is very important. There should be more accountable. There should be on time and on budget. Greater innovation is introduced. They encourage innovative public sector participation. They are also important to boost sales of PPP services abroad. This is especially for developed countries. And for developing countries, transfer of technology is important, and also the training of the local workforce, education, development, developing national capital markets as well. And also address some other reasons like greater price certainty and so on. If we look at the size of PPPs in Europe, so there were more up to, until the beginning of the financial crisis, more than 1,000 PPPs were signed with the total capital value 200 billion euros. But if we take into account until 2011, so all PPPs until 2011, there were 2,500 and almost 300 billion euros in value. The leading country is the United Kingdom, with 3/4 of all PPPs by number and around a little bit less than 60% by value. And the followers are Spain, France, Germany, Italy, and Portugal, and these 6 countries account for 95% of all PPPs in Europe by number. In, let's say, new EU member states, like Hungary is also important. So they are mostly spread in, mostly present in sectors like transport, especially roads, hospitals, schools, municipal services, but they represent only a small share of public investments. So if you look at this chart, this part here is participation of PPP in the value of infrastructure projects, and here we have these gray parts as we see, so they account for around 4% of really public investments into infrastructure. If we look at the impact of financial crisis, there was a huge reduction in number by 16.2%. From 2006 to 2009, and also in value by 41%. The highest reduction was noticed in the UK, where they reduced from around 60 to 33%, and in value from 43% to 18%. We can also see that there is decrease in public financing in Europe, in infrastructure financing, and it decreased from 25% to 14% in 2012. So this is very clearly evident from this chart. There was some recovery, as we can see, in 2010 as regards PPPs, but then there was again drop in 2011. So trends are, we have downward trends. If we look at pre-crisis and the empirical review, whether the advantages that were supposed to be delivered by PPPs came true, there were some positive assessments. So some studies were done from the United Kingdom, United States especially, and Australia. And these are the studies from the literature review that show the positive impact of PPPs. So they were, in terms of value for money tests, they were cheaper, and they were around 7% to 23% cheaper than public procurements. And also, in general, there is positive assessments are given in these studies. But if we look at some other studies that really emphasize the weaknesses of PPP, we can see we have a longer list and some more countries included. So here we have, besides United Kingdom, Australia, and UK, we have also Denmark, Scotland, Finland, and also some other countries in the European Union. So these studies show that expectations didn't realize. They were more expensive, they were So they were cost overruns, they were time overruns. The main beneficiaries were financial providers and service providers, and not taxpayers and the government itself. And we have a lot of studies also with the mixed results, as we can see. So the critique of PPP was that the private sector really doesn't bear the risk, but it is compensated for the risk, and that's why value for money tests turn out to be better than public procurement. So if we use lower this cost of capitals and compensations for the private sector for taking the risk, maybe the traditional public procurement projects would be better. Also, the studies are biased toward PPPs, so it means even when maybe it would be better to have the traditional method, the private sector is involved. So we have overruns and so on. So all expectations really are has really been disputed. UK government has expressed several criticisms about these projects. So we can especially see that procurement process has been slow, that we have insufficient flexibility during the operational period during the service delivery, insufficient transparency on the public future liabilities, so the government's giving guarantees and so on, which is not recorded in the governmental balances and debts. And also that there is inappropriate risk transfer, and as I said before, if this would be accounted for in many times, value for money tests wouldn't show that PPPs are better. And also, as I said, there are windfall gains, especially for equity investors and other financial providers. What is the impact of a crisis on PPPs? So the impact could be seen in operational phase of the project, construction phase, and pipeline phase, but mostly in pipeline phase, where many projects have been delayed or are not going to be realized, and also they face difficulties in operational phase. The impacts are twofold: financial impacts and real impacts. If we look at the real impacts, there is an impact on demand, especially for PPPs that are financed out of charges. So if demand doesn't realize, it impacts revenue cash flow, revenues are not realized, and then servicing of the debt becomes problematic and profitability of the project. And also, there are impacts on the exchange rate. So if we have a lot of external debts, again, servicing of the debt is problematic when the exchange rate depreciates. Also, capital goods in construction phase may become more expensive, and also inputs in operational phase become more expensive, and profitability of the projects are jeopardized. But mostly there are financial impacts also. So the most important are financial impacts of the crisis, which is cost of financing and access to finance. So before the crisis, there were two principal sources of financing, and that was bank debt financing, especially through syndicated loans. The impact of crisis on that was that banks are not prepared to finance, to give credits. There are no credits available, no bank money available, of course. So there are also shorter lending, maturity of the debts became shorter. And of course, there are higher interest rates, so the bank debts became more expensive, and there are increased equity requirements. And if we look at the impact of crisis on bond financing, so bond financing was another important source of financing before the crisis. Let's say in the UK, 2/3 of PPPs were financed from this source. These bonds were guaranteed by monoline insurance institutions at a certain fee, of course, which made PPPs more expensive because of this. But this means that the ratings of these bonds were really the first level AAE ratings. And with financial crisis, of course, these ratings were being written down. And of course, it's much more difficult now to collect money, to gather money through bond financing. So if we look at the impact on the interest rates, we can see that the premium on the interest rates increased from around 70, 80 to even more than 250, even 300 basic points. So the spread has increased more than 3 times. If we look at some country evidences, so if these expectations about the impact of crisis became true, so we see in Canada, Korea, for example, South Africa, also the UK, that it's true. Access to finance and higher cost of borrowing, these are two major impacts of crisis. There was a study done for new projects also in emerging market economies, 316 projects surveyed between July 2008 and February 2009. And 40% of them reported delays due to this financial crisis. So again, future demand, access to finance, and cost of financing was the most problematic. And most delays was really in South Asia, and predominantly India, the report says, and also some traditional economies in Europe and also Central Asia, in Eastern Europe as well. And the largest delays were in energy transport sector, and especially for new projects with a higher value in excess of $250. So we have some other evidence, more detailed evidence. In Korea, for example, less than 70% of projected projects really took place. So there was a sharp decline. And in 2009, there were very pessimistic expectations also in the UK, where National Audit Office reported that waste management projects are delayed and face future delays because of difficulties in financing markets. Health authorities expect a capital desert. Parliamentary committee report on the schools infrastructure program said that maybe far less willing financial investors to enter into PFI arrangements in schools. And also it is said that the bond market, which has been the financial structure of choice for large PFI projects over the past 10 years, is now effectively closed to new transactions. So it means reliance on bank financing would be greater, but of course there is also no bank financing, but bank debts available. There were pessimistic expectations